Sup everyone, Rover here. Welcome to another build guide. This time we'll be looking at Silk. I call her the machine gun archer, and you'll see why later. She's a free unit that can be acquired through connections. A great unit to have if you didn't have a strong Earth DPS from your selective summon. Out of all the Earth Ranger units so far, she has the best speed stat by 121, even higher than other 5-star Ranger units. If anyone is wondering, the Ranger with the highest base speed is Celeste at 128. Like all of my how to build videos, we will have a look at her skills, gears, and artifacts that she can use, as well as her application in game. So let's go ahead and start. Her first skill, One Shot, can reduce the target's combat readiness by 7% and its damage scales by speed. Now I said can be reduced because this effect can be resisted. Yes, I know, that sucks. But keep in mind that any effects that affect the caster, if not specified, will be 100%, but any effects regarding the target will have a fixed resist rate. You see, for example, C. Lorina and F. Clury's S1 will always give them combat readiness, but someone like Nemuna's S1 can be resisted. Ironically, this is best used against bosses with mid to low speed, and not ones with high speed. To deal with enemies that has high speed, a good counter is to reduce their speed or increase your own. Silk, however, has all of these in her kit, and you'll see it when we go through all her skills. This skill's damage is based on her speed, which means the more speed she has, the more damage this skill will do. Spending 20 soul burn on this skill gives her an extra turn. This is pretty expensive and should be used very carefully. Most of the time, you shouldn't use it unless you are either going for a kill or when you have this skill maxed. Silk's second skill, Concentration, is a passive skill which allows her to gain 1 stack of focus every turn. When you have 2 or more focus, single shot will change to automatic fire, which has more hits and deals more damage. Unfortunately, Silk will not gain focus from dual attacks since it is not treated as a turn but rather an attack. Same goes for counter. Keep in mind that she loses 2 stack of focus upon hit and generally does not do well when she is constantly attacked, since a big chunk of her damage comes from automatic fire. Furthermore, she will have a difficult time keeping her stacks up against AoE monsters unless you have a lot of speed. You can also consider using 20 soul burn on her S1 to increase her stack focus to activate automatic fire. Her third skill, Storm Arrow, attacks all enemies and has an 80% chance to decrease speed as well as increasing speed for herself for 2 turns. If she is awakened 3 times, her speed buff affects the entire team instead. This is a perfect skill for Silk since speed covers the drawback from her passive, which only lets her gain focus once per turn, and also makes sure that she gets as much turns as possible to farm those stacks. Not only that, but speed also gives her more damage from single shot due to its scaling. Since she gains 2 focus from this skill, it's a good opening skill to use so you can activate automatic fire on her next turn, as long as she is not attacked. For skill enhance, go straight for Storm Arrow and get it to +3. You will need that cooldown decrease so you can buff more often. To Silk, however, it is more than just that. Since her S1 scales on speed, it's like an attack buff, so you can treat it as a 2-in-1 buff. At +3, speed debuff is increased to 95%. Really good to have against high speed bosses and PvP. If you are using her temporarily, or if you only need her for her buffs, then you don't need to invest any further. However, if you plan to use her as one of your go-to DPS units, I suggest investing on her S2 to max, since it increases damage of automatic fire. As we all know, The bulk of her damage comes from this skill. However, if you prefer more utility, then investing on first skill to +5 to get that extra 3% combat readiness reduction is a decent option. That's a total of 10% combat readiness every time she attacks. Many players who knows the game pretty well will argue that investing on her S1 is a waste, since there are other units with better combat readiness reduction skills on S1, such as Nemunas at 15% and Lidica at 20% max. Yes, it is a waste if you don't invest on her to the end. What I mean by this is that if she doesn't have high level end gear and artifact, especially for speed stat, that extra 3% combat readiness will not make a difference. The good side is damage increase from this skill also increases the damage of automatic fire, since automatic fire is pretty much her S1, so you're hitting 2 birds with 1 stone. Not that bad, right? Silk has one of the highest base speed among ranger classes, and her skills revolve around speed. She may not reduce that much, but speed makes up for that, especially in endgame. There are a few artifacts that Silk can use, and it depends on what's available and the purpose. Song of Stars has a 50% up to 100% chance to apply a debuff on the target, which increases all damage taken by 15% for 2 turns. It can only be triggered by single attack skills. What's good about this is that automatic fire can trigger this artifact. Sword of Judgment is also a good option, since there's a 10% chance to attack again, up to 20% with a basic attack if the target survives. Now most of Silk's damage will come from her S1, so this definitely works. Also, your second attack can decrease the enemy's combat readiness further. However, you will not gain an additional stack of focus from this artifact. Iron Fan is good if you plan to use Silk strictly for ice runs. It increases her damage by 16% up to 32% when attacking an ice elemental target. Great when doing Banshee hunts, Spirit Altar, and other ice bosses, or even ice-based units when doing PvP and Guild Wars. For 4-star artifact, Rosa Hargana is a good artifact to use. It increases dual attack chance by 7% up to 14% and increases attack by 30% when performing dual attack. Perfect when paired with Unity set. Like Sword of Judgment, dual attacks from this artifact can further decrease combat readiness from her S1's effect. For 3-star artifact, I would suggest to either use Ranon's Memorandum, since speed is a staple for her, or our favorite 3-star artifact, Axe, for higher crit chance. Due to Silk's scaling and her kit, there is very little gear compositions that she can use. The most common gear for her is Speed Crit Set. Speed is very important for Silk because her damaging skills heavily rely on this one single stat. Crit is there to maximize her damage output and is generally a staple for all DPS units. Since she has a very high speed stat, she gains more from speed set compared to many other units. Make sure that Boots has a main stat of speed. Variations can include Unity, which increases her S1 total damage output and further decrease combat readiness. However, keep in mind that she will not gain focus. If you need more survivability, use Health Set. She's pretty easy to gear, and she doesn't really need attack nor destruction set. Well, I mean, you can if you want to, but you will gain more from using speed set compared to other 4 gear sets in my opinion, just because of how Silk was intended to work as a whole. But if you want to further increase her damage beyond speed, then make sure that your necklace has a main stat of crit damage, which can increase her total crit damage to 200% if using a high level maxed gear. As I said earlier before, Silk can be obtained for free through connections. Her quest will be available once you have reached a few chapters in adventure mode. The quests themselves aren't that difficult to complete, and they don't take that long to finish. Silk is really good to use as a main DPS, and what separates her from many DPS units is that she offers a supportive buff to the entire team. She does, however, needs to have 2 or more stack of focus to get the most out of her. Using S3 can quickly fill in this requirement, but if she does get attacked, it may take a while to get herself back up. She definitely works in Banshee hunts and is a good candidate for new players. Her speed buff can help clear the full Banshees quickly when the queen splits. She also works well in PvP. Reducing speed of the opposing team is a big slap in the face and can change the tide of the battle. Combat readiness reduction from S1 can further slow down annoying units on top of speed reduction and is great for controlling enemy turn and attack order. However, if Silk gets focused, she is nothing more than a buffer until she can use automatic fire. Even an attack from a tank or support unit is a big loss for Silk since she loses 2 focus from any attack including AoE, so definitely don't use her for defending. And that's the end of my how to build guide for Silk. If I'm missing something or there's something you would like to add, type it in the comments below since it may help other people watching. If you would like to see more, hit that subscribe button and I'll see you in the next video. Rover out.